We opened our marriage to fix our relationship, but it made everything worse. When my wife and I first started dating, it felt like the universe had aligned just for us. We were the couple everyone envied, always laughing, always in sync. The kind of connection you see in movies but never think could exist in real life. But somewhere along the way, that magic began to fade. It started small, forgotten anniversaries, little arguments over nothing, moments of silence that stretched too long. Then, over the years, those small cracks grew into chasms. We became strangers who shared a house, people who knew each other's routines but not each other's hearts. Counseling didn't seem to help. We'd sit in the therapist's office and rehash the same arguments over and over. The sessions always ended in frustration, with neither of us feeling any closer to a solution. I was starting to think we were beyond saving when she came to me with an idea. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch one night, the television playing something neither of us was paying attention to, when she turned to me with a determined look in her eyes. "I've been doing some thinking," she said, her tone unusually serious. "About us. About our marriage." I braced myself. We'd been having so many of these talks lately, and none of them had ended well. "What is it?" I asked cautiously. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "I think we should try an open marriage." I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh and tell me she was joking. But the punchline never came. "An open marriage?" I repeated, unsure if I'd heard her correctly. She nodded, her face earnest. "Look, it's not working between us right now. We're stuck, and I think this could help us reconnect. Exploring connections with other people might remind us of what we have. It could bring us closer in the long run." Her words felt like a slap to the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think sleeping with other people is going to save our marriage?" I asked, my voice rising. "It's not just about sex," she said quickly. "It's about emotional growth, about rediscovering ourselves as individuals so we can be stronger together." I didn't know what to say. On the one hand, the idea felt like a betrayal, like admitting defeat. On the other hand, I couldn't deny that we were in trouble, and I was desperate to save what we had. Against my better judgment, I found myself nodding. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can try it." The first few weeks were surreal. We sat down and set some ground rules. Honesty, communication, and respect were supposed to be the cornerstones of this new arrangement. We promised to share everything, to be completely transparent about who we were seeing and what we were feeling. It felt awkward and unnatural, but I told myself it was worth it if it meant saving our marriage. At first, nothing happened. Neither of us was rushing to jump into anything new, and for a brief moment, it felt like the very idea of an open marriage had brought us closer. We talked more, laughed more, even spent more time together. For the first time in months, I felt hopeful. But then, she met someone. It happened faster than I expected. She came home one evening, her face glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. "I met someone," she said, almost breathless. "His name is Alex. He's funny and kind and I think I want to see where this goes." I forced a smile, even as my stomach churned. "That's great," I said, my voice strained. "I'm happy for you." She didn't seem to notice my discomfort. Over the next few weeks, she threw herself into this new connection with Alex. She started going out more, coming home later and later, her phone constantly buzzing with messages. Meanwhile, I was struggling to adjust. I tried to follow her lead, to put myself out there and meet new people, but it wasn't as easy for me. I felt awkward, out of place, like I didn't belong in this new world we were trying to navigate. The more time she spent with Alex, the more distant she became. She started canceling our plans, forgetting the promises we'd made to each other. When I confronted her about it, she brushed it off. "You knew this was part of the deal," she said, her tone defensive. "You agreed to this." "I agreed to an open marriage," I shot back. "Not to being completely ignored." Her eyes flashed with anger. "I'm not ignoring you. You're just upset because you haven't found anyone yet." Her words cut deep. She was right, I hadn't found anyone. But it wasn't for lack of trying. I went on dates, met new people, tried to force connections that weren't there. None of it felt right. None of it felt real. What I didn't realize at the time was that the openness we had agreed to was already breaking down. While I was struggling to navigate this new lifestyle, she seemed to thrive in it, diving headfirst into her new relationship with Alex. The more I tried to talk to her, to share my feelings, the more she pulled away. It was like we were speaking different languages, living in two completely separate worlds. One night, I finally reached my breaking point. She came home late, again, and when I asked where she'd been, she hesitated. "I was with Alex," she said, her tone casual. "For how long?" I pressed. She shrugged. "A few hours. We went to dinner, then his place." Something inside me snapped. "Do you even care about us anymore?" I demanded. "Because it feels like I'm the only one trying to make this work." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not fair," she said, her voice rising. "I'm doing this for us. I'm trying to grow, to find myself, so we can be stronger together." "Stronger together?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "How is spending all your time with another man making us stronger?" She didn't have an answer. Instead, she turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the living room, my heart pounding with anger and despair. The days that followed were some of the loneliest of my life. My wife and I barely spoke. When we did, it was strained, filled with passive-aggressive remarks or outright hostility. I could see the walls building between us, brick by brick, with no sign of stopping. It was like I was watching the life we had built together crumble before my eyes, and I had no idea how to stop it. She continued to see Alex, and though I tried to keep my promise to be honest and communicative, it became harder with each passing day. I hated the way she lit up when she talked about him, the way her face softened as she recounted their evenings together. It wasn't jealousy, not entirely. It was the realization that she had found something with him that I couldn't give her anymore. In an effort to keep myself from spiraling, I decided to focus on myself. I joined a local gym, started attending community events, and even reconnected with a few old friends I hadn't seen in years. I thought keeping busy would help, but no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had settled deep in my chest. Then, one evening, I met someone. Her name was Emily, and she was everything my wife and I used to be. She was warm, funny, and easy to talk to. We met at a local book club, a last-minute decision on my part, and ended up talking for hours after the meeting had ended. She had a way of making me feel seen, something I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time since we'd agreed to an open marriage, I felt a spark. I felt like maybe, just maybe, this could work. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I grew closer. We went on long walks, shared meals, and talked about everything under the sun. She knew about my situation with my wife. I was upfront about it from the start, and she was incredibly understanding. But as my connection with Emily grew, so did my guilt. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was betraying my wife, even though she had been the one to suggest this arrangement in the first place. I wrestled with the idea of telling her about Emily, worried about how she would react. When I finally mustered up the courage to bring it up, her reaction shocked me. "That's great," she said, her tone flat. "I'm glad you found someone." Her words felt hollow, devoid of any real emotion. I couldn't tell if she meant it or if she was just saying what she thought she was supposed to say. Either way, it stung. As the weeks turned into months, our marriage continued to deteriorate. The boundaries we had set at the beginning of this experiment were all but forgotten. She spent more nights at Alex's place than at home, and when she was home, she barely spoke to me. I tried to fill the void with my relationship with Emily, but even that started to feel empty. No matter how kind or understanding Emily was, she wasn't my wife. She wasn't the person I had vowed to spend my life with. The breaking point came one night when I found a message on my wife's phone. I hadn't intended to invade her privacy, but when her phone buzzed with a text from Alex while she was in the shower, curiosity got the better of me. What I saw made my stomach drop. The message read, "I can't wait for us to finally be together for real. You mean the world to me." For real? What did that mean? My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. When she came out of the bathroom, I confronted her. What's going on between you and Alex? I demanded, holding up her phone. Her face paled. What are you talking about? This, I said, showing her the message. Are you planning on leaving me for him? She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she didn't know what to say. Finally, she sighed and sat down on the edge of the bed. I don't know, she admitted. I didn't mean for it to get this far, but I think I might be in love with him. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air leave my lungs, the room spinning around me. In love with him? I repeated, my voice trembling. What about us? What about everything we've been through? I don't know, she said again, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Neither did I. The rest of that night was a blur of shouting, crying, and painful silences. By the end of it, we both knew the truth. Our marriage was over. The open arrangement we had tried to use as a lifeline had become the final nail in the coffin. The next few weeks were some of the hardest of my life. We agreed to separate, and while I knew it was the right decision, it didn't make it any easier. I moved out of the house we had shared, leaving behind the life we had built together. Emily tried to be there for me, but I couldn't give her what she deserved. My heart was too broken, too tangled up in the wreckage of my marriage. Eventually, I ended things with her, knowing it wasn't fair to string her along when I wasn't ready to move on. It took months, years, even, to rebuild my life. I went to therapy, leaned on friends and family, and slowly began to find myself again. Looking back, I realized that the open marriage wasn't the problem. The problem was that we had lost each other long before we ever opened our relationship. We had been trying to fix something that was already broken, and in the process, we only broke it further. Now, I'm in a better place. I've learned to love myself, to prioritize my own happiness instead of trying to save something that isn't worth saving. And while the scars from that chapter of my life will always be there, they've taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of knowing when to let go.